I might have been wrong about Cincinnati, but I'm right in saying Baylor is so back. This is the Locked On Baylor basketball postgame.
You are Locked On Baylor, your daily podcast on the Baylor Bears. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello there, Bears fans. Welcome to another episode of Locked On Baylor basketball postgame. I'm going to pull his helmet closer so you see it says BU there. I'm your host, Cam Stewart of ESPN Central Texas and the Cam Show on Rogue Media Sports Network, which is also on YouTube if you want to check that out. It's all part of the Locked On. Well, this is all part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. Baylor wins it 66-46, 68-48. See, you can't win them all. But the Bears win this one by 20 against Cincinnati. Big time bounce back win. Cincy drops to 0-3 in the Big 12. And that hence the title a little bit. I think the second straight year they've fallen to 0-3 in the Big 12 to start the season. And the Bears improved to 2-1. This was a nice win, a nice bounce back win. This win does not mean Baylor's going to the Elite Eight, but it's a nice bounce back win. And I think it erased, not erased for the whole season, but they flipped a lot of the things they did poorly against Iowa State into strengths in the game tonight against the Bearcats. It does help that Cincinnati is an offensively challenged team. I've seen a bunch of that already on social media tonight. Like, yes, that is true. But Iowa State is not like an elite offensive team, and they had their way with Baylor on Saturday. I thought Baylor's man defense tonight was as good as it's been all season. And they were actually switching 1 through 5, the thing I was just killing them for on Saturday, and doing it really well in this game. And what I liked the most about it was Baylor was not afraid to kind of, play this game in the mud a little bit, muck this basketball game up, which is exactly what Cincinnati wants to do. It's exactly what Wes Miller wants to do. And Baylor beat them at that game. And if I'm horsing this postgame, it's because my girlfriend just took the water that I had off the table. So who knows? I might die in this postgame. And you'll know why it happened. But Baylor wins this one by 20. It's a big time VJ Edgecombe night. He kind of leads all scorers. There were 3 guys with 18 points. He was one of them. Much more efficient night, 7-13 from the floor. Again, I don't love him taking 4 threes, but when you hit 2 of them, I'll take it. Norchad Omier back to his double-double form. He's the active leader in the NCAA in double-doubles. Shows you why tonight. And again, because he played on the inside. Unfortunately, did make a 3 in this game. He was 1 for 1 from 3. So that confidence will just be skyrocketing. But overall, he's 7 of 9 from the floor, with 10 rebounds in there as well. That's the Norchad Omier we need. I thought it was another positive Josh O game. Yeah, I thought he probably had his best game of the season last year against Cincinnati. Maybe that one up in Morgantown against West Virginia. That was pretty good too. But 10 and 7 from him in 26 minutes. I'm taking that. I'm taking that any night of the week. And they both did pretty well against Bandego, I believe is how you say it, from Cincinnati. Bandego was not much of a factor in this game. He's perfect from the floor. He gets 11 points and 4 rebounds, but 1 or 2 block shots. He was not a defensive force in this game. He was not an offensive problem for Baylor, other than he had a good they had a good offensive rebounding start in this game. I think that's the first 7 offensive rebounds of the game Cincinnati did. And they do beat Baylor in that category, which not a lot of teams do. These are literally number 1 and number 4 in the Big 12 in offensive rebounds, with Baylor being number 1 coming into this game. Still not a lot in the assist category. I said 11 was not good enough on Saturday when they lost by 20, and they get 12 in this game and win by 20. They basically led wire to wire. Where they really dominated them was points in the paint. And that's going back to what I was saying about mucking it up, playing this game in the mud. Baylor went at Bandego all night. 40-16 in the paint. Bears plus 24 in the paint. They're much closer to that than they are a three-point shooting team, which they have been for so many years now, 4 or 5 years. I did get a replacement drink there. But to go up to be plus 24 in a Big 12 game in the paint, that's going to win you some games. I don't know if it gets you to that highest echelon like I was talking about on Saturday's post game of really competing for the Big 12 championship, but it certainly helps. And it's, again, closer to their identity than I think what we've seen in some of those blowout losses this year. Cincinnati, I overrated them, man. I like Jizzle James. I liked Skillings, who had a decent game in this one. He had 18, but Jizzle was nothing. 5 points, 2 of 11, turned it over 3 times, no assists for a point guard. Lukosius, apparently he does hit shots. People told me all last year he hits shots. I've seen him play Baylor 3 times, and I don't think I've seen him hit a shot. Man, like he was a complete non-factor in this game tonight. And again, Bandego was something of a factor, but not impacting the game for them. And so you have a bunch of guys who can't create their own shot. And I think they're, I liked their guard combos of Skillings, James, and Day Thomas. And again, Skillings has a good game, but Thomas and Jizzle James do nothing. They go a combined 4 of 17 for 11 points. Like that's not going to win you a lot of games. And they had a really tough time attacking mismatches that Baylor gave to them when Baylor did give them mismatches. Chris Spatola, who is annoying, had a good point actually. And I think it was the first half. I think it was the latter stages of the first half where, again, Baylor switching 1 through 5 and Cincinnati goes 5 out on this possession. Bandego is open in the middle. He's in a mismatch. He's being guarded by Rob Wright. And for like 10 seconds, 12 seconds, Cincinnati's passing it around the perimeter. And they're not getting him the ball. And like against Iowa State and UConn and Gonzaga and Tennessee, those were easy buckets for those teams. They exploited mismatches. For some reason, Cincinnati did not do that tonight. And again, it was a good Baylor defensive performance, but they just forced the Bearcats to just too much around the perimeter, which can happen in a 5-out offense. But the real beauty of the 5-out offense is exploiting space, and Cincinnati did not exploit any space tonight. No wonder they were held under 50 points. My 70-62 prediction looks pretty poor, way off. I almost had it at 60-52, 10 points less for each team, and that wouldn't have been right either. 68-48, the final in this one. And yeah, you saw, I think, a lot of positives from Baylor's defense in this one, which I don't know how Jekyll and Hyde this defense is going to be this year. It was certainly that way last year. It was not Jekyll and Hyde in 2023. It was either Jekyll or Hyde, whichever one is bad. And we've been on that plane for a couple of years now of either it's not a good defense or it kind of depends on the night. Right now, it looks like it depends on the night, which is better than having a bad defense. So it was, I think, a positive night for the Bears. We had Pete Souza on yesterday, who was calling this game with Spatola, and he said this has got to be business as usual for Baylor. Like this is a team that's not as skilled, not as talented as you. You're at home, although I don't know how much of an advantage that was tonight. And the Bears took care of business. I did see the pictures of the crowd. I mean, at some point, we've got to swallow some pride and give away some tickets. Like, if that's what it's going to take, I know it's Cincinnati and it's not, Kansas or Houston or a regional rival like TCU or Tech. And I know it's a weeknight, but that was horrible. I mean, I don't even think the students are in session yet. And yet they had a student section there, at least from what we could see on TV, but seeing those pictures, I don't like being that guy that hates on the crowd, but like, come on. It's just too bad. It's just too bad. That's all. Let's go to some of the comments here. Purple Lion, couldn't watch this game, but do you think this team found its identity yet? Yes and no, Purple Lion. Yes. I mean, yes, they did find their identity. They shot 50% from the floor, which I think is not just indicative of having a good night. I think they took much better shots in this game than they did against Iowa State. The commentators were saying during the game that I think they only had 8 turnovers against Iowa State. I'm like, that's true. They took care of the basketball in a sense, but some of that shot selection they had on Saturday, that works as a turnover. And I thought it was better tonight in this game. And I mean, yeah, some of it does boil down to Norchad Omier not taking 7 threes, VJ Edgecombe not taking 6 or 8 threes. Like that is what they do. And then Purple Lion also asked, did they play more zone or man? A lot of man in this game, a lot of switching. It was a good, positive defensive night. Scotty B, the Baylor King. He points this out. I did not even notice this till like halfway through the game. Yes, that was Dylan Mitchell from UT that we've seen for UT the last couple of years. Just, I mean, nothing. Literally nothing. Goose egg. 0 for 2 from the floor, missed a 3, 2 rebounds, 4 turnovers, just getting cardio out there for 31 minutes, just getting cardio, getting his steps in for the day. No interest in playing real basketball in this one. But I mean, that's UT for you. That's UT. Bear the truth. Cincinnati is no Iowa State, but there's a big difference between shooting in the 20s and 50 some odd percent. Yes. And lest we forget, Iowa State is an elite defense, like one of the best in the country. Cincinnati had a pretty good defense last year too, and certainly in the metrics looked that way as well. Baylor, a better shot selection. Was Bear the Truth on the Pete Souza show today? I heard that rumor. Yeah, so it was Cincinnati is not Iowa State, correct? That's true. And they did take care of the ball tonight. Scotty B puts out a good point here. Cincinnati's next games, it doesn't get any easier for them. They have Kansas at home, whom I think they beat at home last year. They beat someone big at home. I don't know if it was Kansas or not. Kansas, remember, had all that trouble on the road. And then Colorado on the road. And Baylor's schedule over the next week or so here is, dare I say, easy in terms of a Big 12 schedule. Arizona State, Bobby Hurley's team on Saturday night. Arizona, both on the road. Arizona next Monday or Tuesday. And then I think it's TCU. So it's not like a complete murderer's row coming up for the Bears. Anthony asks a good question. Is the SEC now the best conference in college basketball? In some ways, yes. I link it to what the Big Ten is like in football, which is that the top few teams are really good, like the best, and the depth and breadth of the Big 12 is better. But it also should be noted that, like, I do think Tennessee and Auburn are the best 2 teams. I think that's fair. But you look at a Florida team that was not picked to be great at the beginning of the season. In fact, they had a bunch of controversy going into the season with their coach. They have flown into the top 10, and they crushed Tennessee tonight. Crushed them. Just destroyed them. Took their lunch money and kicked the dirt in their face. Crushed Tennessee. Beat them by 30 points. Man. The SEC, I will give them this. As much as I like to dump on the SEC for football, they do play a good brand of basketball. Now, I think the bottom half is still not as good as the bottom half of the Big 12. But they're some tough SOBs in that conference too. It's not just the Big 12. And that's Bruce Pearl for a couple of years now at Auburn. He got them to a Final Four in 2019. Love the way Florida's playing. Not a big Rick Barnes guy, but Tennessee the last few years plays a good brand. And of course, Kentucky's still sitting there top 10, top 15 with Mark Pope, because trust me, I've got Kentucky fans in the comments. Like, there's 1 or 2 every week on Locked On Baylor, just a random video saying, boy, I'm glad we didn't take your coach. Whatever. Yes, I would say right now that the top end of the SEC right now on January 7th is better than the top end of the Big 12. I know. That's basketball we're talking about. But that could change by like January 14th. Yeah, Scotty B, good point. I did see this before going on. Kentucky did lose to Georgia tonight by 13 points. Maybe that goes against my depth argument there. Bear the Truth, talking about Pete, my man Pete Souza, friend of Cam Stewart, friend of the show, friend of Rogue Media Network. Pete had a great point tonight about the team coming together as the new assistant coaches get more comfortable and dialed in. I'm sure he got that from Scott Drew, which is fine. But I do think there's something to that we need to take into account here. Now, that doesn't mean you can't have high expectations. Baylor in this day and age should have high expectations in basketball. But yeah, I mean, you're talking about 3 or 4 new assistant coaches right to the right arm of Scott Drew. Like that's a big change. And they come in with different styles. You know, I've talked about it a bunch, but like the way this team played offense was John Jacobs' style. Like Jacobs brought that to Baylor pretty much right away. I think he came in the 17-18 season, and by 18-19, they had that Tristan Clark injury, and they had to run his offense, and it worked a charm for Baylor for a couple of years. And so you need to change that. Steve Henson needs to, or is the guy who came in and is trying to set some pace, and he worked with Lon Kruger and some of those really good Oklahoma teams with Buddy Hield. But a couple new guys on the staff. You got NBA guys in there. There is some things you need to work out on that staff. But Baylor did things tonight that I think can translate into other games, which means, you know, they didn't just have a fluky hot 3-point shooting night. They didn't just face a team that stinks offensively. They kicked the crap out of them in the paint. They still had a good night on the boards. I thought both their bigs played well. VJ had better shot selection. I'm looking for a bit more scoring out of the Roach and Nunn combination, especially with Celestine and Love out. But this is something that can carry to other Big 12 games, can carry with them on the road. And this is going to be a nice little test for them these next 2 games. Winnable. They should win those games at Arizona State and at Arizona. But, you know, it's 2 road environments. Saturday night, they're in Tempe. And then U of A always has a good environment. So you go into 2 good Big 12 environments. You're going to, a different time zone. You're going to stay on the road, kind of like they did last year with, I think it was West Virginia and then BYU, which is a huge trip. And it's a chance for you guys to have some good, hard, tough practices, get some gritty road wins, and take that confidence with you as the team starts to get healthy. But anyway, that's my thoughts on this game tonight. Cincinnati did not look like a Big 12 team, didn't look like the caliber of a Big 12 team, and Baylor looked like a different team, a breath of fresh air from what they were on Saturday. Anyway, guys, let me know what you thought about the game down in the comments below. Let me know if you think that Baylor has found its identity and can bring this over in the other games. And what did they do wrong tonight? I'm interested to hear what some of you thought about that and whether it's just a health thing with this team or not. We do have another episode dropping. Thank you to all of you who did the triple header today and went through all 3 Locked On Baylor episodes. We're doing the one in the morning and the afternoon. We're going to be dropping at 8 a.m. Central Time tomorrow on YouTube. And then we will have one about 5 o'clock p.m. Central Time for the bonus episode as well. It's a Wicker Wednesday tomorrow, so Sydney Wicker will be joining me in the morning. We'll be talking a little bit about football, shake up on the defensive coaching staff, and a few more thoughts from this game tonight. So thank you so much for making it your first listen today and every day. Please be sure to like and subscribe. It helps out the channel a ton. We're trying to get to 4,000 subscribers. In fact, my goal for 2025 is 5,000 subscribers. To let the cat out of the bag there. Let's get to 4,000 first. I know you guys can help me do it. You grew this channel so much. So thank you guys for making it your first listen today and every day. We will see you in the morning and again in the afternoon on your favorite show, the number one destination for Baylor basketball postgame. It's, of course, Locked On Baylor.